Good evening and welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's first and only daily show dedicated to startups, technology and entrepreneurship. I'm Chandra Shrikant coming to you live from India's startup capital, Bengaluru. And the biggest story in the last 1 hour that's really every newsroom is talking about is Indra Nooyi's departure from the post of CEO of PepsiCo come October. Now, she was, remarkable for many reasons. Her rise as the first foreign-born CEO of PepsiCo, the first woman CEO of PepsiCo. She was really a source of inspiration to women across the corporate ladder. Her rise from a Tamil-speaking family in Chennai to the top rungs of PepsiCo is legendary. Now, what lessons does she leave from a leadership perspective, from a gender perspective? To get more on that, we have two very special voices joining us on the show today. Two women who have made it big as far as the Indian startup ecosystem is concerned. We're talking about Vani Kola, who's the managing director of Kalari Capital, one of the top investors in the Indian startup ecosystem. Of course, before that, she's had stints in entrepreneurship in the US. We also have Meena Ganesh, the MD and CEO of Portia, who remember is also an investor as part of Growth Story. Thank you both so much for joining us on Startup Central. It's great to get two top women investors weighing in on what lessons in leadership Indra Nooyi leaves as far as the ecosystem is concerned. Vani, I'm going to begin with you. You know, as someone who's admired Indra Nooyi for many years, what does this development mean for you, her imminent departure as a CEO of PepsiCo after a 12-year stint?
Yes, I mean, first of all, I think we need to really take pride in all her accomplishments of the past, and stepping down has to happen at some point. So I assume that it is something that she has thought through and something that she wants to do. So I really don't read much into her stepping down as much as I read more into valuing all her contributions that she has made, in being a female CEO of Indian origin and all the positive contributions she has made. So I think stepping down is after a 12-year stint is not a unnatural process.
Meena, thanks for joining in as well. Your initial thoughts?
Yeah, hi. Indra Nooyi has been an inspiration for all of us. And I also take larger pride in her success, given that she is also from my alma mater, Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta. Obviously, she has had a wonderful checkered career and has contributed hugely to PepsiCo's transformation from a company which provides predominantly sugary drinks to somebody who is much more conscious of the health and wellness of people and moving the company, steering the company towards more healthy products. It's a phenomenal achievement, not just for a woman of Indian origin, but for any CEO to transform a company in this fashion is great. Obviously, she has, I'm sure, other plans, and after a very long and checkered career, it makes every sense to look at other opportunities and take other paths also. So yes, it's a great journey which we should all celebrate. Fantastic piece of work that she has done.
Right. I hope part of her plans also involve India and Indian startups at that. Perhaps she will come back here in some form, perhaps in a mentorship role. But Vani, coming back to you, what are the biggest lessons in leadership that you've learned or imbibed from her, that you take away from her, both as an entrepreneur and as an investor?
I met Indra many years ago, before in fact she was CEO. I think I met her in 2001 or 2002, first time. And what I have taken away from her is her single-minded focus and ability to really be able to think in a broader landscape and set a vision to something in a distance and work towards achieving that. And she ascribes that to focused discipline. And I have taken a lot from her, philosophy of dedication and discipline.
Right. Meena, you said one aspect for you is, of course, the fact that, you share your alma mater with Indra Nooyi, which is IIM Kolkata. But, the same question that I had for Vani for you, in terms of, your own career as a serial entrepreneur and an investor, what do you take away from Indra Nooyi's career in terms of the lessons this has in leadership, in, managing multiple roles and still coming out on top? What lessons does this hold for you?
See, Indra Nooyi is a role model in many ways. One is to be able to succeed so effectively in the American corporate landscape, to be able to transform a company of such large stature and nature. It can only happen if you are extremely confident and stick to a path that you have laid out for yourself. But also what I believe is very important, that she has shown that it makes sense. It's very important to continue to learn. It's not enough to say that I have reached the top of PepsiCo and I have inherited a fantastic company, but it didn't stop her at that point. She kept on looking of what else needs to change. How does she need to improve? How does she need to improve herself and the company? Now, this is a very important characteristic that as a CEO, I have always thought about as an important, as a big part of what I do. And I think it's great that the kind of leadership that she shows, a lot of youngsters will learn that reaching a high place is not the end. It is just the beginning. You have to continue to set goals beyond that. You have to see how to transform yourself and take everybody around you so that that kind of transformation can take your company, your position, your whatever has been bequeathed to you to many different levels. That's a huge learning for all of us, I believe.
Right, and she was also very grounded in the way she saw herself. She's shared multiple examples about how her mother kept her grounded throughout her rise at PepsiCo, how she kept reminding her of the other roles that she had to play. But her exit brings me back to a very important question that we all grapple with frequently. Vani, this also puts the spotlight on the dearth of women in boardrooms. A lot of people say that it's not so much about women at work, but women in the boardroom. She was that rare exception of a foreign-born CEO and a woman, PepsiCo's perhaps first woman CEO. With her exiting, there is yet another vacuum. Do you think enough has been done in this respect? Where does India stand when it comes to women representation in the boardroom and in the top management?
Well, we all know the numbers, right, Chandra? Women in boardroom, women as entrepreneurs, women as CEO, more needs to happen there. It's plus or minus 5% in terms of representation at that very senior most level. I genuinely believe that for every Indra Nooyi that succeeds, we can create 5 or 10 more that draw inspiration from her, draw mentorship, and takeaways from someone's success. So if we continue to do that, 1 becomes 5, 5 becomes 25 then. I hope in a decade or so, we would not be talking about 5% numbers. Maybe it is 15% at the senior most level. And that grows till we get to a better equitable participation. But I definitely believe that a success of what Ms. Nooyi has achieved will have a trickle effect, not only in large companies and large boards, but in startups, and not only in US, but it will have that trickle effect even here in India.
Right. Meena, as someone who's, seen the Indian ecosystem and not just the startup ecosystem, but, before you've sort of founded and sold Tutor Vista along with K Ganesh, that a couple of ventures. Now you're heading Portia. You're also an active investor via Growth Story. How are you seeing things changing as far as the Indian startup ecosystem is concerned? Are we seeing more women founders? Are we seeing investors show more interest in ventures run by women? Because some studies say that, you know, the return on capital is higher, the returns are higher when a venture is led by a woman or founded by a woman. There are various studies on this count. But academics aside, are you seeing people put this to practice? Have things really improved?
Well, I do believe that things have indeed improved in the last nearly 18 years that I have been an entrepreneur. I have seen dramatic changes. That said, obviously, like Vani also said, the percentages are still very small, be it in the board or a startup. But the good news is that today there are plenty of women-led startups that do come to us for conversation, for investment, for us to put the companies together. And in my own portfolio, out of the 14 companies, we have 3 women-led companies, which is Rashmi at Fresh Menu and Joe at GrowFit and myself. So we are seeing much more of traction with women. Now that said, I think the story has to be led from both the sides, not just for the ecosystem to help women succeed, but for women to also feel confident that their gender has really nothing to do with their success. It's really what they wish to do, and their passion and desire to succeed is what will make them succeed. The other thing that I believe which is missing in India is the number of role models that you can work with. Now, there are obviously very senior people, very accomplished people like Vani here or Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, but we need also a lot of next level women who are succeeding and who are showing the path, so that young women who want to become an entrepreneur look up and see, aha, 3 years hence I can be like her. It's not that 30 years hence I want to be like somebody like Kiran Mazumdar, who's I'm a great fan of, and I'm very, very proud of her achievements in Bangalore. But you need people at different levels that you can aspire to. Now, your earlier question of with Indra Nooyi stepping down, does it create a vacuum? I'm sure Indra has every plan of not allowing it to become a vacuum, actually create more of Indras around her through whatever mentoring and support that she can provide. And I do hope that India will benefit from that as well, both in the startup ecosystem as well as in the corporate sector.
Right. Meena, you know, you're saying missing role models. I have 2 role models right here on Startup Central. That's you and Vani, which I think is a very different scenario compared to a few years back. So 2 top women investors who've also been very successful entrepreneurs. More power to you and the companies in your portfolio. In fact, we interviewed Rashmi Daga as well recently from Fresh Menu, considering she's won the ET Startup Award this year. But Vani, final question coming to you. You know, Indra Nooyi's quote a few years back became very famous, where she said women can't have it all. They pretend they can have it all, but they can't have it all. Considering the, you know, what we are talking about today, people are talking about gig economy and shared parenting and equal parenting, and we've had a huge movement in the last year. Where are we today as far as this is concerned? Would you say things are different today?
My guess is more or less the same place, but we will have to have a women of a different generation. I am of the same generation as Indra Nooyi. We will have to have a women of a different generation like you speak about it. But from what I see, you know, it's maybe not just for women. Even if it is for men, I think it's difficult to have it all. I think we have to focus and know what some of the compromises in life are and what we give up and what we get. I think it's very difficult to have a very high performance career and job and find balance for everything.
Meena, would you agree with Vani there that perhaps, you know, the current generation, a lot rests upon them on what they do in the future for things to change, but a lot of things perhaps haven't changed? Or are you slightly more optimistic on this front?
Well, when I look at I have a daughter who's 28, and she clearly is the current generation, and I see that her generation, the girls do think very differently. So do the boys. It's a much more equal representation in their heads of how their lives have to be led. So I'm very optimistic when that generation needs to be leading organizations, they would have a lot more of support around them with a more, like you said, whether it's equal parenting or expectations being equal of what each partner would bring into the family. I think things would look very different as they rise up. Now that said, that's still the cream of women who have this kind of opportunity and the ability to demand that the equality. There are still a lot of women in tier 2 cities who might be as excited or as capable of doing things as women in the top cities are. For them, they need a lot more of support and help so that they can break out of their shell, as well, not just their own internal shell, but also the social milieu, which needs to change to support them. I am extremely optimistic. I do see in the last 20 years that I have been an entrepreneur, things have changed drastically and dramatically. A lot more of support from the ecosystem, as also from the women who are jumping into the front and saying, I want to do this. So I remain optimistic, Chandra.
Right. On that note, Bani and Meena, thank you so much for joining us on Startup Central. 2 women investors, women entrepreneurs, women leaders that I look up to, and I'm sure all of us must look up to, because we do need more role models, not just Indra Nooyi, but a lot of them in India as well. And both of them are, big examples of that. They've also been investing a lot in mentoring women, in investing in women entrepreneurs. But on that note, I'm afraid it's time for a break. But stay tuned, because on the other side of Startup Central, we bring you a conversation with a woman entrepreneur. That's Rashmi Daga of Fresh Menu. She's won the Woman Ahead category award at the ET Startup Awards this year. We bring you a conversation with her on business and more on the other side of the break. Welcome back to ET Now Startup Central. Before the break, we brought you a conversation with 2 leading women investors, Vani Kola and Meena Ganesh, on lessons in leadership from Indra Nooyi. And now we have an entrepreneur herself who's funded by one of them. We're talking about Fresh Menu's Rashmi Daga, funded by the likes of K. Ganesh, as well as Lightspeed and other companies. Now, Fresh Menu has, Rashmi Daga won the Women Ahead category this time at the ET Startup Awards. My colleague Rahul Dama caught up with her to really understand the push and pulls of the business, what the plans are going ahead as far as Fresh Menu is concerned, and what she makes of this win. Listen in to this special conversation with Rashmi Daga.
Brilliant that I got recognition this year. Feels very good, and I was genuinely not expecting this to come by, but great, it feels great.
All right. I know it's been a while, so the feeling has sort of finally sunk in that you have really bagged the category. But the category that you have been nominated and won the award is for the Women Ahead category. Talk to us about I know it's a little cliched. Every entrepreneur really faces difficulties. The fact that one is an entrepreneur itself is such a tough journey. But for women entrepreneurs, are there challenges that are different from what a male entrepreneur would face, or are you really sailing the same boat and it's really a perception challenge that you're fighting?
So I think once you decide to be an entrepreneur, it's the same sailing, because the problems are same. The company or the environment that you're working with or the ecosystem that you work with, I think challenges don't change. Probably to decide to do a startup and what kind of startup, there could be different things going in your head as a male or a female, or also what I've seen and heard now outside. So I see a lot of women tend to overthink on their idea and believe they would have everything ready and then they would start up, and that would never happen in life. The opportunity bus would have gone by. Like if you take even food tech, there were 200 startups when we started, which means the same idea comes to 200 people, and 200 decided to start up, which means 2,000 people would have thought of that idea. So I think you just have to take the plunge when the timing is right, or when you are passionate about an idea. That is a big hurdle. More than just saying a male or a female entrepreneur.
Rashmi, from the business perspective, we met I think 2 years back at your beautiful kitchen in Domblur. Life has changed a lot since then. I think that time the food tech space was going through so much of churn. We saw several startups really shut down, a lot of them wind up operations, fire employees quite mercilessly and move on with life. That phase is sort of normalized. There's more sense in the business. You have tided over it. So, what has changed over the last 2-3 years?
Back then also I said this business needs relentless execution, and I think that's what Fresh Menu has been at for last 3 years. We really need to understand that this business is a tough operations business, and you would need to keep working at it without really losing focus on the core operations. So I think clutter and dust has settled. Things are probably looking easier from competitive landscape point of view, but there's so much more to do for consumers, reducing friction on the food ordering side, doing innovation on food. So as a company, we still feel we have just started and we have so much more to do.
In terms of also considering that you're a cloud kitchen of sorts, you don't aggregate, restaurants. You've believed in that, so that's how you will stay in terms of being a focused cloud kitchen, ensuring you have a lot more control over the recipes, about the innovation of food, the sort of customers that you cater to. That will not change?
That will not change. And today actually we're building more and more control right from the ingredient sourcing level. So we would not change that part of the focus for business.
Rashmi, interestingly, you claim that about 80% of your customers are repeat. So in any business, be it food or elsewhere, that's like an awesome recipe to success. What do you think is work? Because 80% in terms of repeat customers sort of talks about the business that you've been in.
For us, this business was always going to be built on repeat business, because food as a category, we all think about it 3 times a day. And once you've got a customer to believe in your brand, you have to keep getting him back again and again. And that has been the focus for the company. So be it the product that we do or marketing that we do, we really would want to make sure that we get more and more repeat. Our focus is to now figure out more products and more occasions where we could get you to order more.
All right. Lastly, I know you sort of course, prepare your speech for the ET Awards to tell women entrepreneurs who will watch you what to do. But what is that 1 or 2 things that you would want? We were having a discussion, you spoke about the guilt also that a lot of women entrepreneurs have. 2 tips that you'd want to give to the women entrepreneurs watching the show, or people who want to turn entrepreneurs?
So don't try to be perfect, go for it. I think challenge yourself and run for the goal, because otherwise somebody else will run for it faster. And keep the guilt away, because there are enough things that we could be guilty about, but being successful and making impact would make a lasting impact in life.
Valuable lessons for women entrepreneurs coming from Rashmi Daga. Don't try to be perfect, and most importantly, keep the guilt away. But on that note, we're completely out of time on this edition of ET Now Startup Central. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for more news and updates on the channel.